God's chosen ones. Below the chosen one. Stop scrolling. Heaven has pressed pause on everything around you to deliver this word. This is not coincidence. This is divine intervention. You are not like the rest. You never were. Before the world ever whispered your name, heaven declared it. Before your mother ever held you in her arms, God had already carved your destiny in eternity. You were marked from the womb. You were set apart. There was something different about you, even as a child. You never quite fit in, not because you were broken, but because you were built for something different. You didn't blend in with the crowd because you weren't designed to. The rejection, the misunderstandings, the out-of-place feeling you carried in rooms that felt loud and crowded, that was the proof. Heaven set you apart so earth could never hold you captive. You weren't called to be popular. You were called to be powerful. Listen carefully now. The final call is sounding. The trumpet in the spirit is shaking the gates of complacency. God is summoning his marked ones, the chosen, the carriers of glory, the torchbearers of this generation. You know it deep in your bones. This world has never felt like home because your spirit is anchored in eternity. Think back. Every time you were about to give up someone pulled you back. Even in your rebellion, his hand restrained the worst consequences. You were wild, but not wasted. You made mistakes, but mercy intercepted. And that's because you were never meant to perish in the valley. You were chosen to rise from it. Even your enemies can sense it. That's why attacks came early. That's why betrayal pierced you so deep. You weren't just fighting people, you were fighting hell's attempt to abort your mission. But you survived. You overcame. You're still breathing because your assignment is still active. You may have questioned why you were born into chaos, why pain followed you like a shadow. But hear this. The devil targeted you early because he saw what you would become later. He saw the oil, the anointing, the destiny, and he panicked. Hell fears the emergence of the chosen, and still, you rise. Now, heaven is calling for a response. Not tomorrow, not later. Now, you've been marked, preserved, and refined for this moment. This is the final call. Step into who you really are. No more hiding. No more waiting for permission. You are not waiting on God. He is waiting on you. You are not too broken. You are not too late. What you carry is not common, and that's why the process has been uncommon. Chosen one, it's time to reclaim your crown. Let me speak to the weariness in your soul. You're not crazy. You're not delusional. You've sensed there was something more your whole life, and you were right. That longing, that fire, that ache in your spirit, it's your divine DNA calling you home. It's heaven saying, you were never meant to blend in. You were made to set the standard. God did not choose you to be another voice in the crowd. He chose you to be a voice in the wilderness, crying out, shaking foundations, waking sleeping nations. And to every attack you've endured, God says, I saw it, I allowed it, but I did not let it consume you. What was meant to destroy you became your training ground. The tears watered your destiny. The scars became your armor. You are no longer fragile. You are forged. Don't you dare back down now. This is your wake-up call. This is heaven's alarm. The shaking in your spirit isn't anxiety, it's activation. You're not falling apart. You're breaking open. You're about to step into what you were born to become. Right now, wherever you are, make this a prophetic act. Type 777 in the comments if you know this is your word. 7 is completion. Today marks the end of confusion and the start of clarity. Comment 777 and declare it. I am God's chosen one. And don't keep this to yourself. There's someone else who's been wondering why they feel so out of place. Why nothing seems to satisfy them. Why they keep getting attacked for no reason. They're chosen too, but they need to hear it. Share this message with someone who needs a divine reminder. Hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. Stay connected to the flow of anointing, because this is just the beginning. You're not watching this by chance. This is your moment, your awakening, your final call to rise. Heaven didn't just mark you. It is now summoning you. You've always walked a strange road, haven't you? Paths others seem to glide down effortlessly, feel like uphill battles to you. Milestones that come naturally to those around you. Relationships, opportunities, even peace seem to either take longer or cost more when it's your turn. But this isn't punishment. This isn't failure. This is proof. Proof that you were set apart. Chosen one. You were never meant to walk the common road. The detours, the delays, the doors slammed, shut in your face. Those weren't signs of rejection. They were signs of divine redirection. You kept trying to fit into rooms God didn't assign you to. You kept trying to link arms with people who were only meant to pass by, not stay. Every no, every fall, every heartbreak was heaven guarding your difference. The truth. Your destiny is too weighty for shortcuts. That's why the wilderness feels so familiar. You've lived in seasons of obscurity longer than most. You've questioned your worth because others seem to be racing ahead while you're still waiting. But there's something God is whispering in your delay. You are not being punished. You are being prepared. Preparation doesn't feel glamorous. It feels quiet, isolating, misunderstood. It feels like doing right and still getting overlooked. It feels like staying faithful and still being betrayed. It feels like late nights talking to God with no answer, and early mornings pretending everything is okay. But underneath the silence, something is growing. A warrior, a messenger, a vessel fit for glory. You were never forgotten. You were being formed. That's why you couldn't hold on to people who didn't carry vision. That's why temporary satisfaction turned bitter in your mouth. You were created for more than mediocrity. And mediocrity knows it. That's why it kept trying to seduce you into lowering your standard. But heaven won't let you settle. Look around. You've seen friends soar while you were still stuck. But you didn't realize they were flying light because they weren't carrying the same mantle. What you carry is heavier. What's inside you is holy. And holiness requires a different kind of journey. You have felt like the outsider for so long that you started to believe maybe you were the problem. You weren't. You were the confirmation. You've walked through rooms that couldn't recognize your value because your worth isn't earthly, it's eternal. The discomfort you feel isn't dysfunction, it's misalignment. And God is pulling you into alignment now. Everything that made you feel strange, set aside, or too much was actually your spiritual DNA shining through. The world doesn't know what to do with chosen ones. It tries to tame them, dilute them, or break them. But what God has planted in you cannot be undone. No. Rejection can erase your calling. No delay can cancel your appointment. Your silence has been your training. Your solitude has been your classroom. And while others danced in the spotlight, you were being refined in the shadows. Because when the light finally hits you, it won't be to entertain, it will be to transform. You didn't choose this path, it chose you. And though it's cost you your comfort, your plans, even your sense of control, it is leading you to divine purpose. You may not see the full picture yet, but you can sense it. Something holy has been hovering over your life since birth. A weight, a pull, a knowing that refuses to let you disappear into the background. And now, every step you've taken, every strange turn, every road less traveled has brought you here. This moment, this intersection of awakening and decision, you were not designed to chase what others chase. You were designed to carry what few can carry. This is why you had to walk alone. This is why they couldn't go with you. This is why certain doors had to stay locked, because you are not called to enter like everyone else. You are called to be the door, the one others walk through, the one who opens what has been shut for generations. You are the breaking point for cycles, the healing that your bloodline never saw coming, the evidence that heaven intervenes, and strange roads often lead to sacred places. So, hold your head high. You are not behind. You are hidden, not rejected, protected. You are not lost. You are led. And what has felt like a detour has always been destiny disguised. You are not crazy for feeling the shift. The road you walk is not random. It is the map of the set apart. You've been chosen to tread the path few dare to follow, because the glory that waits at the end is not common. It is eternal. Chosen one. Do you know why the fire in your life has been relentless? Why battles broke out before blessings ever showed up? Because hell knows your name. Long before you fully understood your calling, the enemy did. He saw your light before you even saw your reflection. That's why the war against your peace began so early, because darkness sensed what you were carrying. Some of your hardest moments had nothing to do with poor choices. They were spiritual ambushes. Premature storms sent to exhaust your spirit before you could fully step into your assignment. But you're still standing, still breathing, still believing. That alone is a threat to every demonic plan that tried to end you. From the moment you took your first breath, spiritual warfare marked your path. You were misunderstood, mistreated, manipulated not just by chance, but by design. The enemy studied your bloodline, your habits, your heartbreaks, searching for entry points. But what he didn't expect was how hard you would fight back. That despite trauma, shame, and deep soul wounds, you would still choose faith. You would still rise. As we read in Isaiah 54, should see, no weapon forged against you will prevail, and you will refute every tongue that accuses you. You weren't just covered, you were commissioned. Even when you felt weak, heaven saw you as dangerous. That's why hell has been trying to distract you, because your focus is lethal. Your voice, a weapon. Your obedience, a threat. Your prayers, earth-shaking. Hell knows. If you ever fully believed who you are, nothing could stop you. You've probably felt the pressure intensify before key transitions in your life, right before you stepped into breakthrough. The battle ramped up. That's because the enemy knows how close you are. Close to clarity. Close to destiny. Close to breaking generational curses with a single act of obedience. But hear this now. Hell's opposition is heaven's confirmation. Think of every sleepless night, every tear-stained prayer, every "why me?" God whispered into the dark. The battle wasn't random. It was a response to your identity. You're not under attack because you're weak. You're under attack because you're wired for glory. It was declared in Luke 10, "Shijo, I have given you authority to trample on snakes and scorpions and to overcome all the power of the enemy. Nothing will harm you." That authority didn't come easy. It was forged through battles. Most wouldn't have survived. And yet, here you are. Don't minimize what you've endured. You didn't just go through it, you grew through it. The trauma that was meant to break you only revealed your resilience. The betrayal that should have silenced you only sharpened your discernment. Every season of attack became a season of anointing. The enemy doesn't fight what doesn't threaten him. That's why some people live undisturbed in disobedience, because they pose no risk to hell's agenda. But you carry something eternal, and darkness has tried everything to dim your light. Yet every time you've been knocked down, you got back up, maybe a little bruised, maybe more guarded, but always more powerful. Chosen one. It's time to stop asking why the attacks came, and start realizing what they confirm. You were never average. You've been a marked one from the start. When you walk into a room, atmospheres shift not because of who you are, but because of whose you are. So, let the enemy rage. Let the past scream. Let the memories try to haunt you. Because every lie hell speaks is just another confirmation of your truth. You are chosen, set apart, carried through fire, but not consumed. As we find in Isaiah 43:r, "When you pass through the waters, I will be with you, and when you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you." You've passed through more than most, and you've never been alone. That's why the attacks didn't work. That's why the curse couldn't cling. That's why death lost its grip. Because you are not just surviving, you are rising. Right now, if something in your spirit is burning with agreement, make a prophetic declaration. Type in the comments, "I rise anyway." Let every demon that's been whispering defeat see you stand. Let every force of darkness that thought you'd quit witness your return. Let hell know. They should have taken you out when they had the chance. But it's too late now. There are things that should have destroyed you. Moments that could have shattered you completely. Situations you don't even talk about anymore, not because you've healed, but because the words still tremble in your chest. And yet, despite it all, you're still here. Not broken beyond repair. Not forgotten. Still standing. You keep surviving what should have killed you. That's not coincidence. That's not luck. That's divine preservation. You've walked through fires that left others consumed. You've been in rooms where hope suffocated, where fear whispered louder than faith, and still, something in you refused to die. Even on the days you gave up, Gracia didn't. Even when you let go of your calling didn't let go of you. Some people only know the surface version of your survival. They see the smile, the strength, the way you keep going, but they don't see the nights you cried on the bathroom floor, the silent prayers, the internal wars, the battle to even get out of bed. You've carried pain with a quiet dignity. You've buried trauma under service, hidden heartbreak beneath productivity. And somehow, in the middle of all that weight, you've kept your heart tender. That is not weakness. That is supernatural strength. Chosen one. The attacks weren't random. The timing wasn't arbitrary. Every assault on your identity, your mind, your body, it all came with intent. Hell recognized what you carried and tried to suffocate it early. But divine hands were over your life, even in your darkest valley. You didn't realize it then, but angels stood over you when the pills were in your hand, when the steering wheel nearly turned into the guardrail, when your thoughts grew louder than your hope. Something unseen kept pulling you back. And it wasn't your willpower. It was purpose. There is a calling over your life that death cannot silence. As we read in Psalm 34, the righteous person may have many troubles, but the Lord delivers him from them all. You weren't just delivered, you were developed in those trials. You found endurance where others gave up. You found faith when circumstances mocked it. You found a reason to breathe, even when everything in you screamed to quit. There's a reason the enemy keeps targeting your peace. Because peace is powerful. A mind at rest is a weapon. A heart that trusts God is untouchable. And that's what you've been becoming, untouchable in the spirit. You've endured back-to-back storms without the luxury of recovery. You've fought spiritual wars while pretending everything was fine. You've shown up for others while bleeding in secret. And still, somehow, you didn't collapse. That's not normal. That's evidence of heaven's hand on your life. Sometimes, the people closest to you didn't even notice. They didn't discern the weight you carried. And that was by design too. God often hides the full extent of your battle because the assignment is yours alone. No one can fight this one for you. No one can carry your oil. This is your fire, your pressing, your path. But oh, what is being produced in you? You don't realize it yet. But survival was never. The goal transformation was. God wasn't just trying to get you through. He was building something inside you that couldn't be destroyed by the next storm. He was forging spiritual authority, teaching your hands to war, training your mouth to speak life when surrounded by death. And now, you are a living contradiction to hell's agenda. You're still kind after betrayal, still hopeful after loss, still believing after delays. That's the fruit of the Holy Spirit still growing, still blooming. Even in soil meant to bury you, the enemy's greatest mistake was leaving you alive. Because now, every breath you take is prophecy. Every step forward is defiance. Every healed scar is a sermon. Think back to that season when you almost didn't make it. The one that took your sleep, your laughter, your sense of safety. The one that made you question everything, even your own worth. Now, look at you. You're no longer there. You're no longer that version of yourself. Something in you has shifted. You are evidence that the grave can't hold what heaven calls forward. This is why you're still standing, not just to survive, but to lead, to guide others out of what once nearly consumed you. Your story is about to be someone else's survival map. Your scars are going to light the way for the next chosen one who's hanging on by a thread. What the enemy meant for evil, God is turning for glory. Not everything is fixed yet. You still have battles, still have questions, but you are no longer who you used to be. You carry wisdom now. You carry the authority of someone who has lived through fire and walked out. And let's be clear, you didn't walk out empty. You came out carrying keys, revelation, intercession, power. You don't just have a testimony, you have a mantle. It may not be loud. It may not be visible to everyone, but it's real, and it's heavy, and it's yours. You have become a threat to the kingdom of darkness simply by not dying, by rising one more time than you fell, by whispering, "God, help me," when your voice trembled. That is what heaven celebrates. That is what qualifies you. So stop disqualifying yourself. Stop apologizing for your journey. You didn't survive to stay silent. You survived to walk in power, and you will. Chosen one. There's a reason your nights feel heavier than most. When the world goes quiet, your soul starts to speak, and what it says is not shallow, it's deep, holy, untamed. You are one of the sleepless ones, not by disorder, not by chance, but by divine design. There's a weight on your spirit that doesn't clock out at sunset. You toss, you turn, not because of anxiety, but because of awakening. You feel the pull to pray, to listen, to cry out. Even when your body longs for rest, your spirit stands at attention, because heaven often speaks in whispers and you've been trained to hear what others ignore. God wakes the set apart at night, not to punish, but to prepare. He disrupts your slumber because he knows you've matured past comfort. He's calling you deeper, not to religion, not to routine, but to revelation. The kind of revelation that rewrites generations, the kind that demands stillness so it can thunder in your soul. You are not losing your mind. You are being summoned. There are blueprints in the spirit that are being downloaded in the midnight hour. Instructions, strategies, warnings, answers to prayers you forgot you prayed. While others are dreaming, God is drafting your next assignment. Do you remember Samuel, a boy in the temple, woken in the night by a voice unfamiliar yet holy? He didn't recognize it at first, but it was the beginning of everything. That's you. You're in a Samuel season. The stirring, the sleeplessness, it's sacred. The world will call you restless, but heaven calls you ready. You've been chosen to hear what others sleep through, to sense what others dismiss. That's why you can't drown your sensitivity in distractions anymore. It won't work. You're too awake now, too attuned to what's moving in the spirit. You've tasted purpose. Sleep won't override it. It was spoken in Psalm 16. See, I will praise the Lord, who counsels me. Even at night my heart instructs me. That's what's happening. Your heart, infused by the Spirit, is becoming your classroom. And the lessons don't stop when the sun goes down. Chosen one, your midnight wrestles are not wasted. Every time you've laid there, tears soaking your pillow, whispering prayers you couldn't finish, God heard. Not just your words, but the groaning underneath them, the unspoken burdens, the confusion you were too tired to voice. He doesn't need eloquence to move. He responds to hunger, and you are hungry for more than answers, for encounter. That's why nothing else satisfies you anymore. Why shallow teachings bore you. Why small talk exhausts you. You were made for depth, for fire, for truth that rattles the bones. This is not just a season, it's a shift. God is awakening his night watchmen, his intercessors, his prophets, his warriors, and you have been enlisted. So when the clock strikes 3 and your eyes shoot open, don't curse the silence. Step into it. Ask. Speak. Lord, your servant is listening. Watch how heaven fills the room. Watch how revelation flows like oil when you stop resisting and start receiving. And when that moment hits, when you realize you are not alone, that the Holy One is in your midst, something will break. The kind of breaking that leads to birthing, the kind that reminds you, this isn't insomnia. This is invitation. Invitation to rise, to receive, to release. God is giving you things in the dark that will light up nations in the day. But first, you must stop running from the calling that keeps calling your name while the world sleeps. It's okay to be tired. It's okay to weep. But never forget, the sleepless ones are the sacred ones, the ones entrusted with the mysteries of God, the ones who carry burdens too deep for words and intercessions too real for noise. You've been chosen for this, and if this word is stirring your spirit, if you know this is not just for a season, but for your very soul, then stay connected. This journey wasn't meant to be walked alone. There is strength in community. There is power in unity. Tap like if this found you at the midnight hour. Share this with someone else who lies awake, wondering why the night won't release them. Subscribe to stay locked into what God is building here, because it's not just content. It's confirmation. It's oil. It's a lifeline for the called. And if you feel led to partner with this mission to help us continue pouring into the sleepless ones around the world, consider sowing a seed. Every offering fuels this voice, extends the reach, and touches souls in places algorithms could never reach, not by compulsion, but by conviction. Give only if heaven prompts you, because what we're building isn't for show, it's for the set apart. Paul reminds us in 1 Thessalonians 5, "Woo, you are all children of the light and children of the day. We do not belong to the night or to the darkness. But understand this, being a child of the light means confronting the darkness. And that confrontation often begins in the quiet hours, in the still places, where only the chosen dare to linger. This is your confirmation. You're not alone in the night. You've been set apart in the dark to prepare for what's coming in the light. You've always known, deep down, that you didn't belong. Not to systems, not to trends, not even to certain families or churches that tried to mold you into what they could understand. You're not rebellious. You're reformed. Not difficult, just different. You are one of the spiritual misfits in a world that hates what it cannot control. Chosen one. Your spirit has always rubbed against the grain of the culture. That discomfort you felt, it's not an identity crisis, it's divine clarity. You were never meant to blend in. You were designed to stand out. And not for your own glory, but for God's. There are places you walked into where everything in the room shifted, not because you were loud, but because your spirit disrupted the atmosphere. You carry a frequency that convicts darkness. Your presence alone disturbs agendas. That's why some people didn't like you. Even when you did nothing wrong, they sensed something ancient on you, something that wouldn't bow, couldn't bend, and refused to be tamed. The system has always hated the set apart, and you've tried, haven't you? Tried to fit, tried to be quiet, tried to not feel so deeply, tried to be normal. But the fire in your bones refused to die. The questions in your spirit refused to be silenced. The ache for something more would not let you settle, because you were never designed for shallow waters. You've always needed more than entertainment, more than routine. Your soul aches for truth, for encounters that tear veils and destroy chains. You've been craving purity in a world of performance. You've been longing for presence, the kind that causes demons to tremble and hearts to break open in repentance. That longing is not emotional instability. It's a holy hunger. And with that hunger comes pain. The pain of being misunderstood, of being too much, of being overlooked in places where the surface is celebrated, but the spirit is ignored. The system loves predictability, but you, chosen one, are prophetic. You disrupt cycles. You carry blueprints that don't exist yet. You're a walking contradiction to everything the world idolizes. Paul reminds us in Romans 12, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. That's not just a suggestion. That's your reality. You don't fit the pattern because you are the remnant cut from a different cloth, made in a secret place. You've been judged for your silence, your fire, your questions, your convictions. But hear this, they didn't reject you. They rejected what you represented. A different kingdom, a higher standard, a shaking they weren't ready for. You carry an uncompromised yes in a world full of diluted maybes. And because of that, God has kept you hidden. Not because you're not ready, but because the environment isn't. He's kept you from platforms that would pollute your voice. He's withheld relationships that would poison your purpose. He has preserved you not because you're weak, but because your value is too high to be wasted on those who can't discern it. Your isolation was never punishment. It was protection. So stop mourning doors that wouldn't open. Stop crying over circles you were never meant to sit in. You're not behind. You're set apart. And the same God who called you out is now calling you forth. The world doesn't need another polished voice. It needs fire. It needs truth. It needs the ones who don't flinch when darkness rises. It needs you. And if you feel that confirmation in your spirit, if every word feels like it's naming something you couldn't explain, then don't stay silent. Right now, as a prophetic act, type 444 in the comments. 4 is the number of divine order and foundation. It's heaven's reminder that what He is building in you will last. It won't crumble. It won't fade. It won't be shaken by culture or criticism. Type 444 and declare, I was made for more. Because you were. You still are. This world was never your home. But you were sent here on assignment. And no system can cancel what God has appointed. They can reject you, mislabel you, even mock you, but they cannot erase what you carry. Hold your ground. Chosen one. You're not strange. You're strategic. Chosen one. You've tried to make peace with ordinary. You've tried to silence the hunger, to convince yourself that enough is enough. But no matter how many times you lowered your expectations or tried to settle, something in you revolted. Every shortcut soured. Every compromise collapsed. Because deep in your spirit, you know this truth. Don't you dare settle. You weren't built for halfway. You weren't anointed to merely survive. There's a roar in your belly, a holy agitation in your soul that refuses to be calmed by shallow victories. Every time you tried to water yourself down to fit someone's cup, heaven intervened, because you were never meant to be contained. The moments when you chose the easy path, when you went with what was convenient instead of what was consecrated, you felt it, didn't you? That internal dissonance, that spiritual unrest. Peace doesn't follow compromise for the chosen. It haunts them, because once you've been marked by glory, nothing else satisfies. Even the blessings that came through disobedience tasted bitter. God let you have them just long enough to realize, this is not my portion. He loves you too much to let you live beneath your identity. So you tried again. You surrendered more. You laid things down that cost you comfort, reputation, connection. And each time you obeyed, your spirit stretched. You got stronger, wiser, lighter. But the temptation to settle didn't vanish. It just changed form. It became more subtle, more socially acceptable. It wore the face of logic, safety, even religion. But the voice of destiny kept whispering, not here. There are people who will never understand why you walked away from what looked perfect, why you turned down opportunities, relationships, and positions that others would have killed for, but you saw beyond the surface. You felt the absence of glory, and you knew, this is not it. There's a weight to being chosen, a loneliness, a constant friction between who you are and what the world offers. And the lie that tempts every set-apart one is this: you're asking for too much. But hear this now, you're not asking for too much. You were made for more. You were made for depths that drown the average, for heights that require a cost, for a mission that demands your full yes, not just your church attendance or moral behavior. There's a throne with your name etched in eternity, and every time you settle, you delay sitting in it. You've been entrusted with keys, authority in the spirit realm, and you can't wield them while living in compromise. Proverbs 4:23 declares, Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. You've learned this by experience. Every time you let something unworthy into your heart, it leaked into your calling. Every compromise left a stain. But even then, God didn't disqualify you. He refined you. He allowed certain things to break so your discernment could sharpen. He let the idols you clung to fall so your vision could clear. He let the illusions crumble so you could finally see. You were made to build on eternal ground. And now, there's no turning back. You've tasted too much of God's voice to return to noise. You've been kissed by holy fire, so the smoke of man-made ambition will never move you again. You've danced with purpose too long to settle for applause. But the temptation will still knock. It will show up in the form of false comfort, in relationships that mimic intimacy but lack covenant, in jobs that pay well but drain your soul, in communities that validate your ego but silence your calling. And each time, you will be asked the same quiet question: will you settle here? And each time, your spirit will remember, this is not home. You may feel weary. The journey is long. The road is narrow. Sometimes, you'll wonder if obedience is worth the cost. You'll feel the sting of delay, the ache of being misunderstood, the isolation of being set apart. But don't confuse pain with wrong direction. It often means you're exactly where you're meant to be. Jesus said in Matthew 7, "But small is the gate, and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it." You're walking that narrow road now. It doesn't feel comfortable, but it leads to life. And that life, it's not just eternal. It's here. It's now. It's purpose, authority, peace that cannot be shaken. It's oil that flows from sacrifice. It's fire that spreads without burning you alive. Chosen one, there are things waiting for you on the other side of obedience that comfort could never deliver. There's favor that only falls on those who endure. There's glory that only rests on altars of surrender. So don't you dare settle. Don't plant roots in temporary places. Don't sell your birthright for a bowl of relevance or security. You are not called to be popular. You are called to be pure. Not called to be busy. Called to be burning. Not called to be impressive. Called to be impactful. And every time you say no to the counterfeit, you make room for the authentic. Every time you walk away from good, you're one step closer to God. So, lift your eyes, wipe your tears, and keep moving. The path you're on is holy, and the reward is not just what you receive, it's who you become. There's a weight you carry that few can see, a pressure that sits on your chest in silent rooms, a knowing that follows you, even in mundane moments. It's not anxiety. It's not fear. It's glory. You've been entrusted with something holy, and the cost of carrying glory is never cheap. Chosen one. This is what they never told you. Being chosen comes with crushing. To carry what is sacred, you must be stripped of what is superficial. To hold what is pure, your hands must first be emptied, and that emptying is brutal. It doesn't just touch your habits, it touches your identity, your comfort, your attachments. You have been processed, pressed, taken through the fire more than once. And still, it wasn't to destroy you, it was to purify you, to test the vessel, to prepare the oil. This is why some things fell apart when you thought you were finally getting it right. This is why certain people walked away just as your heart began to open. God wasn't punishing you. He was preserving the glory you were meant to carry. You cannot pour holy oil into a leaking container, and you, chosen one, have been sealed, not with ease, but with endurance. You've endured the kind of silence from heaven that breaks the average soul. You've prayed with no answers, waited with no signs, and obeyed without applause. Still, you stayed. Still, you said yes. You passed the hidden tests. The hidden tests are the hardest. The ones where no one sees your faithfulness, where your obedience feels invisible, where it seems like everyone else is running while you're still being refined. But those are the very places God marks his vessels. In the secret, in the dark, in the pain. The anointing you carry didn't come from a conference. It didn't fall in a flash. It came from crushing. The kind of crushing that squeezed out everything fake in you, every false ambition, every impure motive, everything that would have tainted the oil. And still, you kept saying yes. That's the glory. Glory doesn't rest on charisma. It rests on crushed lives. David didn't wear the crown until he wore the wilderness. Joseph didn't step into authority until he survived abandonment, betrayal, and prison. Jesus didn't ascend until he had descended into death. There is always a cost, but the cost is what confirms the call. As we read in 2 Corinthians 4, should see, for our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. What you're carrying is heavy, but what it's producing is eternal. And now, you understand why the process was so severe, why the warfare was so specific, why the testing felt personal. Because the glory on your life is personal. It's generational. It's transformational. You weren't just called to be blessed. You were called to be a blessing. You weren't just anointed for comfort. You were anointed for impact. And impact requires integrity. That's why God wouldn't let you skip the process. Why he kept exposing what you tried to hide. Why he broke what you tried to protect. Because where he's taking you, there can be no room for compromise. The glory requires a clean house, a holy posture, an unshakable trust. Chosen one, don't despise the weight you carry. It is proof of heaven's trust. God doesn't place glory on those he won't also purify. And that purification is not to shame you, it's to protect you. From ego, from error, from entitlement. You are not just gifted, you are guarded. Heaven has invested too much in you to let you become reckless. You felt the tightness of conviction, the restraint of the Spirit. Others may get away with it, but not you. You're called, marked, chosen, and because of that, your path will always cost more. There will be moments when you're tempted to trade the weight for ease, to lay down the mantle for the comfort of being normal. But glory won't let you go. Purpose keeps calling you back. The oil keeps flowing even when your heart says enough. That oil is for nations, for generations, for souls you haven't met yet. You've become a carrier of something eternal. And now, the burden of it will not leave you, but neither will the strength to bear it. The same God who crushed you is the God who will carry you. The cost is high, but the calling is higher. And in time, people will see the glory. They'll see the fruit, the transformation, but they'll never understand the cost. That's okay. You didn't pay it for their applause. You paid it for His presence. You were never just chosen to shine. You were chosen to carry weight. Chosen one. You've seen it happen over and over again. Your presence shifts the atmosphere. People you've never harmed feel uncomfortable around you. Crowds that cheered, others fall quiet when you speak truth. Rooms grow tense. Conversations feel strained. And you've wondered, what did I do wrong? But here's the truth. It's not what you're doing, it's what you're carrying. You carry a frequency that shakes hidden things loose. Not because you expose them with words, but because your existence carries light, and light, by nature, confront darkness, even silently. You felt it, that strange tension. People who used to embrace you growing distant, smiles that feel forced, invitations that never come. They're not reacting to your personality, they're reacting to your purity, your obedience, your authority. You've become a mirror, and mirrors make people face what they'd rather ignore. Some can't stand the reflection your life brings, not because you judge them, but because your discipline convicts their apathy. Your hunger for God unsettles those who've numbed themselves to the Spirit. Your refusal to compromise disturbs those who've built comfort on disobedience. The truth is, your walk with God is exposing things even without you trying. Jesus Himself said in John 3, Asher, everyone who does evil hates the light, and will not come into the light, for fear that their deeds will be exposed. You, chosen one, are carrying that kind of light. A light that can't be hidden. A light that uncovers hidden motives and disrupts demonic agendas. That's why people shift when you enter the room. That's why some friends suddenly distance themselves. That's why mentors who once affirmed you now avoid you. It's not rejection, it's reaction. Spirits that once went undisturbed now tremble when you speak. Your presence is a living rebuke to what they've tolerated, and instead of repenting, they retreat. You are not losing people. You are losing pretenders. And as painful as it is, it's part of the purification. God is not subtracting for cruelty, He's making space for consecration. You cannot carry this level of oil and stay surrounded by those who live in compromise. The separation is protection. They didn't leave because you changed. They left because you elevated. Your mind shifted. Your posture deepened. Your prayers intensified. You stopped entertaining nonsense. You started requiring alignment. And anything not rooted in truth began to wither. You've become a living altar, and altars burn what's unclean. You must understand this. What makes people uncomfortable around you is often the very proof of what God is doing within you. You don't carry normal. You carry fire. And fire purifies. Yes, but it also provokes. It was declared in Malachi 3, Dalsan. For he will be like a refiner's fire. He will sit as a refiner and purifier of silver. That's what your presence has become, refining fire. Not because you're better, but because you're set apart. And yes, it's lonely. Yes, it hurts to be misunderstood, to be the one who always makes things spiritual. But that's because you see what others ignore. You hear what others dismiss. You're not being dramatic. You're being discerning. The pressure to tone it down, to soften your truth, to stay quiet, that's not humility. It's hell's strategy to silence your authority. But you weren't raised up to blend in. You were sent to shake foundations. Even in your silence, heaven speaks through you, even in your rest. The atmosphere senses warfare. You've walked into rooms and felt the oppression before anyone said a word. That's not paranoia. That's discernment. You've felt joy vanish when certain people entered your space. That's not mood swing. That's spiritual sensitivity. You are not crazy. You are anointed. Don't dim your light to make others comfortable in their shadows. Don't apologize for the fire you carry. Don't hold back truth just to maintain peace. You weren't created for diplomacy. You were born for dominion. This is not the season to shrink. This is the season to stand. And if this word ignites something in you, if your soul recognizes the weight of it, then say so. Let the spirit realm hear your agreement. Right now, type in the comments, I disrupt darkness. 3 simple words, but they carry thunder. Let every demon that's tried to silence you know you've found your voice again. Say it loud. Say it clear. Say it because it's true. I disrupt darkness. Because your light doesn't just glow. It confronts. Chosen one. Let's talk about the breaking. Not the poetic kind. The real kind. The kind that makes you question everything: your faith, your future, your identity. The kind of breaking that feels like betrayal, like being torn open without anesthesia, like watching everything you built with hope crumble in your hands. What if I told you that was the making? What if I told you that the breaking wasn't a detour, it was a design? That God didn't abandon you in those moments. He authored them, not to destroy you, but to transform you. You've been asking, why did it have to hurt this bad? Because some things can't be taught, only born. And the deepest anointings come through the deepest crushing. Olive oil doesn't flow from untouched fruit. It flows from pressed, crushed, shattered olives. And you, yes, you have been in that press. The tears you cried weren't wasted. The seasons you lost weren't lost at all. They were invested. He was making something sacred. There's something heaven wants you to know. You weren't broken because you failed. You were broken because you were chosen. And there are things inside you that only pressure could release. Gifts that only isolation could awaken. Glory that only grief could refine. As we read in Psalm 51, should see, the sacrifices of God are a broken spirit, a broken and contrite heart you, God, will not despise. You didn't just survive that heartbreak. You were sacrificed for transformation. And God saw every silent scream. Every night you clutched your chest, wondering if your spirit could take one more blow. It could, and it did. And it's stronger now, because what shattered you shaped you. You carry wisdom now that can't be taught in books. Discernment that wasn't inherited, it was fought for. You've got a prayer life born out of pain, not convenience. You know the voice of God because you've had nothing but His voice to hold on to. You're no longer soft clay. You've been fired in the furnace. That's why your praise is different. Your silence holds authority. Your walk carries weight. You've become dangerous to hell because you refused to die in the press. This is why the enemy feared your breaking. He knew if you survived it, you would emerge refined, not ruined. He knew If you didn't drown in it, you'd rise carrying oil, and oil flows from the crushed. Don't despise your scars. They are your spiritual fingerprints, proof that you have been in the presence of pain and made it through, that you've touched grief and came back glowing, that you've been crushed but not consumed. Isaiah 61:3 calls it a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning. That's not poetry, that's promise. You've lived the ashes. Now the beauty is about to break forth, and it won't come like applause. It will come in whispers, in divine connections, in unusual favor, in unlocked doors that don't make sense. Because when heaven promotes you, it doesn't ask for the world's permission. You are not the same person who broke. You're not as fragile, not as naive, not as easy to manipulate. You've been tempered by fire, and now the oil flows. It flows through your voice, your presence, your words. You've become a well for others, and they don't even know what you paid for it. But God knows, and He's not unjust. Hebrews 6:10 reminds us, God is not unjust. He will not forget your work and the love you have shown Him. That includes the seasons when love looked like tears, when worship looked like survival, when faith meant showing up even while shattered. You were made in the breaking. So hold your head high, not in pride, but in holy awareness. You've been through the kind of battles that qualify you for leadership in the Spirit. You don't need a title. You have testimony, and that is enough. Chosen one. If this word has breathed life into your spirit, if you feel the fire of recognition stirring in your belly, don't let it stay with you. Hit the like button so others like you can find their fire again. Share this with someone who's still in the press, who needs to hear that the breaking is birthing something sacred. Subscribe to stay aligned with this movement of truth, fire, and deliverance. This is not just another message, it's a mantle. And if the Spirit moves your heart to partner with what's being built here, to pour into the soil of revelation, encouragement, and global impact, consider sowing into this mission. Every offering pushes the message further. It's never about money. It's about multiplying freedom. Because what breaks you doesn't have to bury you. It can build you, and in your case, it has. You prayed. You fasted. You cried. You begged heaven for a word, a sign, a whisper, and yet, all you got was silence. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and through it all, God said nothing. Not a warning, not a confirmation, just silence. Chosen one. What you took for abandonment was actually alignment. The silence of God was not His absence, it was His architecture. While you were pacing, He was placing. While you were wondering, He was weaving. What looked like divine distance was divine design. And just because He didn't speak didn't mean He wasn't moving. You see, there are seasons where the silence is the strategy. He hides His voice not to punish you, but to teach you to trust His character. Because if you only follow Him when you hear Him, it's not faith, it's feedback. But when you keep walking, even in the silence, that's when heaven calls it obedience. You kept going, even when it felt pointless. You stayed faithful. Even when your heart was fractured, you chose holiness. Even when it cost you company. That's the kind of devotion that shakes the spirit realm. Not loud declarations. But quiete décision. The ones no one applauds. The ones that happen in secret. Those are the altars where real glory falls. In Exodus 3:3, The Lord promised Moses, "My presence will go with you, and I will give you rest." But Moses didn't feel it every day. He had to walk by memory, by covenant, by a knowing that God is not a man that he should lie, that he doesn't tease his children with promises he won't fulfill. That's where you've been, living on memory, feeding on remnants of former encounters, hoping the silence doesn't mean rejection. It doesn't. God's silence was your season of rooting. You were learning to listen past noise, to discern without signs, to develop a posture that says, even if I hear nothing, I still trust everything. Because faith doesn't just believe in miracles, it believes in the mystery, and mystery has always been part of the sacred. Think about it. Abraham walked toward a land he had never seen. Joseph dreamed, but endured years of silence before the dream ever breathed. Even Jesus, on the cross, cried out, "My God, why have you forsaken me?" And yet, even in the silence, the plan was unfolding. The silence is holy ground, but it feels like fire, because in the absence of clarity, your idols are revealed. When God stops speaking, who do you run to? When he withholds answers, do you still lean into worship? Or do you reach for control? The silence surfaces the truth. It brings you face to face with the foundation you've built. And for many of us, that foundation had to crack so he could rebuild it right. So yes, the silence hurt. It stripped away false confidence. It confronted your dependency on affirmation. But in the stripping, something sacred emerged. Real faith. The kind of faith that stays when feelings don't. The kind that endures when the heavens are quiet. The kind that says, "Even if he slays me, yet will I trust him." Job lived that. You've lived that. And now, chosen one, you're coming out of that silence different. You don't need noise anymore to believe. You don't need confirmation every 10 minutes to keep walking. Your ears have matured. Your posture has changed. You're not moved by the absence of sound. You're anchored in the presence of God, because you've learned something most never do. When God is silent, he's not absent. He's sovereign. And sovereignty moves in dimensions we can't measure. It creates in realms we cannot see. What you called delay was design. What you called distance was discipline. You are not being punished. You were being fortified. So now, when God speaks again, and he will, you'll be ready. Not desperate, not needy, but aligned. You'll recognize the sound, not with your ears, but with your spirit, because silence trained you to hear in deeper ways. What he says next will not just confirm what you hoped for, it will commission what you were born for. And the stillness will make sense. All the nights you wept into your pillow, all the prayers that felt like echoes, all the fasts that seemed fruitless, none of it was wasted. You didn't fail. You were formed. And now, you carry something few ever do. The wisdom of silence. The authority of the quiet ones. The ones who know that when heaven seems quiet, it's because something massive is being prepared behind the veil. The silence didn't break you. It built you. Listen carefully. Chosen one, the final call is sounding. Not metaphorically. Not someday. Now. There's a weight in the air that can't be explained by circumstances. A tightening in the spirit. A pull that won't release you, no matter how distracted you try to be. It's not your imagination. It's the urgency of heaven. You've come too far to pretend you don't feel it. The signs are everywhere. Cycles are collapsing. Old patterns are refusing to hold. Even the things that used to comfort you now feel hollow, because when the trumpet sounds in the spirit, everything not rooted in destiny begins to crumble. And chosen one, the trumpet is sounding. This is not the hour to delay, not the season to entertain confusion. You've been trained too long to turn back now. You've heard too much truth to pretend you didn't. You've survived too many storms for this to be the moment you stop short. This is the final call, heaven's summoning of the marked. You are not confused. You are called. You are not disqualified. You are dispatched. You are not waiting for confirmation. The confirmation is this moment. God isn't repeating himself. He's requiring a response. Revelation 3:20 reminds us, "Here I am. I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in." That knock you feel in your chest, that's not anxiety. That's appointment. Divine timing intersecting with obedient hearts. You've asked for purpose. It's here. You've asked for clarity. It's here. You've asked for a sign. It's here. But it will cost you comfort, safety, passivity. None of these can survive the final call. God is not calling the casual. He's calling the committed. The ones who won't need applause to obey. The ones who will move at his word, even when nothing around them makes sense. And yes, the cost is steep, but so is the reward. Because with this call comes fire, power, authority, the ability to speak and see atmospheres shift, the kind of spiritual weight that transforms rooms, awakens hearts, and dismantles strongholds. But only the obedient will carry it. This is the hour where delayed obedience becomes disobedience, where hesitation equals forfeiture. There's no more space for "I'll do it when." This is now or never. You've been marked since birth, warred against since childhood, refined by pain, preserved by grace, and now commissioned by fire. Don't miss your moment. You were not brought through hell just to live in hesitation. You were not healed from trauma just to shrink back. You were not anointed in secret just to hide in fear. This is your release. This is your launch. This is the moment everything shifts, not because the world changes, but because you respond. So make a declaration right now. Let it echo in the spirit. If you feel the fire of this word in your bones, type 999 in the comments. 9 is the number of finality. It marks the end of delay. It's heaven's symbol that the old season is over, and the new one demands movement. Type 999 and let it be your resounding yes. The final call is not just a sound, it's a sword. It divides casual from committed, emotional from eternal, busy from burning. You know who you are. You know what you carry. Don't delay. Don't debate. Don't look back. It's time. You were buried, but not because you were finished. You were buried because something holy was being planted. The darkness you endured wasn't a grave, it was a womb. The silence wasn't the end, it was the beginning of a resurrection. Chosen one. You were never meant to stay beneath. The weight, the grief, the invisible sorrow you carried it pressed you down. Yes, but it didn't destroy you. It concealed you. For a time. For a purpose. So something in you could rise again. God allowed the burial so he could raise you in power. There's a sacred mystery in being hidden. It looks like isolation. It feels like abandonment. But it's really heaven saying, This one needs time to transform. You weren't rejected. You were preserved. And even though the dirt felt suffocating, it was creating a holy environment where resurrection could take root. As Jesus declared in John 12, "Arshasu, unless a kernel of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains only a single seed. But if it dies, it produces many seeds." That was you. You had to fall, had to be buried, had to endure the pressure of silence. But what's coming out of this cannot be measured. There's a power that only the buried ones carry, because they've known what it feels like to lose everything, to be counted out, to hear the silence of God and the chatter of defeat, to lie in that in-between place where nothing blooms but everything breaks. But what they don't tell you is this: it's under the surface where the real work happens. It's in that secret place that your identity is remade, that your ears are tuned to the whisper of God, that your hunger deepens and your vision expands. It's in that darkness that you stop chasing man's approval and start craving only God's voice. You've been there. You know the ache, but you also know the shift. That moment where something stirs again. The breath returns. The tears turn to fire. And suddenly, you're not just breathing, you're burning. Something in you has changed. You don't fit the old mold anymore. You've shed it. You've emerged. And what's rising now is resurrected purpose. There's a sound that comes from the ones who've been through death and back, not physically, but spiritually, emotionally, relationally. The ones who've been betrayed, broken, buried, and yet got back up. That's the sound hell fears. That's the sound of resurrected voices. It's a sound you carry now. And no, it's not loud. It doesn't need to be. It carries weight, authority. Resurrection doesn't need to shout. It commands with presence. You've walked through the valley, not around it, not over it, through it. And now you know who you are. You know the grave couldn't hold you. You know the shame couldn't stick. You know the silence didn't steal your song. You're not just surviving anymore. You're rising. And when you rise, things change. Atmospheres shift. Chains break. Assignments activate. Because you're no longer functioning from emotion, you're moving from encounter. And encounter always carries resurrection power. You've been given new eyes. You see differently now. The things that once consumed you no longer hold weight. The distractions don't draw you. The noise doesn't sway you. Because you've seen what most haven't. You've seen God in the dark. And when you've seen Him there, you don't need constant signs to believe anymore. You walk with conviction, not convenience. The resurrection wasn't just for you, it was for what you're about to build. Your testimony is a blueprint for the broken. Your survival is an answer to someone else's prayer. Your comeback is confirmation that God still brings dead things to life. This is not just a personal breakthrough. This is a prophetic signal. That resurrection power is still active. That God still raises what man buries. That He still breathes into dust and makes it live again. The enemy thought it was over. He watched you fall, laughed when you wept, waited for the silence to consume you. But what he didn't see coming was the seed, because while he was mocking your burial, heaven was scheduling your emergence. Now you rise, and not just in strength, but in glory. Not just in healing, but in holy fire. Not just to tell your story, but to unlock others from their graves. You rise as proof that God finishes what He starts. That oil flows from the crushed. That delay is not denial. That the tomb is not the end, It's the threshold. Chosen one. You have crossed over. What once held you cannot contain you anymore. What once silenced you cannot mute your fire. The grave gave you a gift, a resurrection mantle, one that cannot be faked, bought, or copied. It can only be survived. You survived. Now rise. It's no longer time to wait, not time to keep questioning, overthinking, or seeking constant reassurance. Chosen one. You've been crowned, even if no one announced it. You've been positioned, even if the stage is still being built. Now is the time to move like the crowned. There's been a shift in your atmosphere. Something in your spirit knows the wilderness has expired. The hidden season is closing. And with it, the excuses you once used to stay safe. You've outgrown your waiting room. The doors have opened, but you must choose to walk through them, not as one begging for permission, but as one who carries authority. The waiting was never just about timing. It was about formation. You were being trained to carry what others cannot. Your obedience was shaped in secret. Your spirit matured in silence. Your discernment was forged through delay. And now, all of that becomes your compass as you step forward. You're not guessing anymore. You know. Even if fear whispers, you move. Even if doubt clings, you move. Even if the path looks unfamiliar, you move like the crowned. You no longer need visible crowns or outward validation. The mark of God is on you. Invisible, but undeniable. You don't have to announce it. It will be felt. You've entered a phase where your walk carries proof. Not through volume, but through weight. People will start to ask, what changed? They'll feel it before they see it. They won't be able to explain the gravity of your words or the silence that makes rooms shift when you step in. That's what happens when one walks in royal alignment. Your crown is not ornamental, it is functional. It's not about glory. It's about government. You've been authorized to establish order, to cast down lies, to activate dormant gifts in others. Your life will serve as a turning point for many, not because you try to convince, but because you simply carry. In Proverbs 4, Jew, we're told, she will give you a garland to grace your head and present you with a glorious crown. This isn't poetic language, it's prophetic truth. You've walked with wisdom. You've chosen righteousness over recognition. And now the reward is resting on you in the form of divine mantle. It's time to stop second-guessing your voice. The whispers from the pit that tried to shrink you, those are last-ditch efforts from an enemy who knows you're no longer negotiable. You've stepped into resolve. You've embraced the call. It's time to govern your domain. What does that look like? It means no longer tolerating cycles that you've been graced to break. No longer waiting for the perfect moment to begin what God already assigned. No longer diluting truth to maintain comfort. You don't move based on comfort anymore. You move based on commission. You are royalty. Yes, but not the pampered kind. You're the battle-hardened kind. The crowned who've come from caves. The anointed who've wept and warred in private. You know the cost of compromise, and you've chosen consecration instead. And now, everything must rise to match the new standard. Your circle, your habits, your language, your posture. No more apologizing for being intense, for craving depth, for walking away from mediocrity. That's not pride, it's alignment. When you know who you are, you no longer accept what dishonors your design. The crown you wear cannot rest on casual shoulders. You were born to govern realms others are afraid to enter, called to uproot what others only complain about. You don't just bring light, you establish order. That's why the warfare increased. That's why hell panicked. Because the moment you move like the crowned, systems break. People of impact don't wait to be introduced. They announce themselves by moving in purpose. You've hesitated long enough. This is the hour to act. Boldly, decisively, prophetically. Every delay must now bow to divine momentum. Every excuse must yield to holy clarity. Because when royalty walks, creation recognizes it. You don't need trumpets. You don't need applause. The fruit will reveal the root. The oil on your life will speak louder than any platform ever could. From this moment forward, walk with posture, not arrogance, not pretense, but with the stillness and strength of one who has seen God in secret and now moves with his authority in public. Because you don't need a crown to be crowned. You've been marked in the Spirit, and it's time the earth sees what heaven already knows. There's a moment often subtle, often unannounced, when everything begins to align, when the warfare slows, not because the enemy has surrendered, but because heaven has shifted the balance. Chosen one, what's coming next will confirm everything. They will know you were sent. This season won't require explanation. It will speak for itself. You've endured the silence, the shadows, the battles. You've walked misunderstood, mislabeled, and mistaken. But you never bowed, never stopped believing. Even when the results didn't match the revelation. Even when those around you whispered that maybe you missed it. Maybe you got it wrong. You stood anyway. And now, heaven is about to vindicate your obedience. This isn't about showing off. It's about showing forth. The fruit that is about to emerge from your life will be proof not just of your faithfulness, but of God's faithfulness to you. They will see it in your walk, in your words, in your work. The mark of divine commissioning will be undeniable. You were not self-appointed. You were sent. Isaiah 61. Uno declares, "The Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is on me, because the Lord has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor." That is not just a scripture, it is a banner over your life. You've been anointed to proclaim, and soon, those who once doubted you will witness the fire you carry, and the doors that open not because of connections, but because of conviction. What's coming next cannot be explained by talent or timing. It will be the kind of favor that makes people ask questions, but you won't need to defend your elevation. The evidence will be too loud, the impact too deep, the fruit too consistent, because heaven doesn't endorse lightly, and when it does, it leaves a mark. You will walk into places that once ignored you and be met with honor. You will speak in rooms where your name was once dismissed. You will carry answers where once you only had questions. But this time, you won't be the same. You'll walk differently, speak differently, move with the assurance of one who knows their origin is not earthly. You come from a deeper place, from the oil press, from the furnace, from the secret place where only the broken dwell. That's why your glory will not come with pride, but with precision. You'll be strategic with your presence, guarded with your voice. Not everyone will have access anymore. Not because you're bitter, but because you're assigned. You've become a vessel not just of influence, but of instruction. Your very life will become a manual, a walking message. Others will study your endurance, your consistency, your refusal to fold. And through that, they'll begin to understand their own assignment. You've become an answer, and not just for individuals, for systems. The workplace that mocked your faith will shift under your leadership. The family that couldn't understand your separation will begin to follow your example. The community that once resisted your fire will be warmed by it. You don't need a platform. You carry a presence. And presence creates transformation without announcement. It wasn't random that you felt pressed to stay silent in certain seasons. God was guarding your brand from premature exposure. He was teaching you to be content with depth, not applause. And now, because you passed that test, He is about to display His glory through your life. Not a watered-down version. The full weight. Unapologetics. Undeniable His. They'll ask, where did this come from? And you'll smile, knowing they didn't see the cave, the crying, the crushing. They see the rise, but not the root. And that's okay, because the root is where the reverence lives, and the rise is where God gets the glory. You didn't manufacture this. You became this. Every layer of pruning, every closed door, every lonely night, it wasn't wasted. It was sculpting you. And now, the final form is being revealed. You won't have to convince anyone anymore. Your life will testify. They'll know. You were sent. There's a strange pain in separation, isn't there? The kind that doesn't scream, but hums in the background of your days. A quiet echo of why did they walk away? Or why didn't they stay? And yet, chosen one, what you once called rejection was actually protection. They were never meant to come. The ones who left, who misunderstood you, who couldn't see your vision or carry your burden, they weren't removed in cruelty. They were removed in mercy. Because the weight of glory that rests on your life could never be carried in crowded places. It required separation. And separation, while painful, is prophetic. You were never called to be one of many. You were called to be one of the marked, the ones who walk roads others fear, the ones who say yes when others stall, the ones who carry light so raw it offends the darkness in others. It had to happen this way. The loneliness was not a punishment. It was an announcement, a divine exclamation that heaven was setting you apart for a work too rare to be diluted. You didn't lose community. You were repositioned for covenant. God was removing counterfeit connections to make space for divine alignments. You weren't abandoned. You were isolated for elevation. Jesus knew this pain. In John 6, From this time, many of his disciples turned back and no longer followed him. Even he, the Word made flesh, experienced mass departure. Why? Because when truth rises, only the hungry remain. Only the committed follow. And that's what's happened in your life. Your truth rose. Your identity matured. Your fire intensified. And everything not rooted in assignment fell away. Let it fall. Let them go. Let the spaces that once held you become memories, not destination. You are not called to circle the wilderness with people who refused transformation. You are called to cross over, and you cannot cross carrying extra weight. There are some connections that would have drained your oil before it was ever poured. Some associations that would have reduced your flame to fit their comfort. Some relationships that were more about familiarity than future. God severed what you were too loyal to release. And now, the ache in your chest is not just sorrow, it's confirmation that the pruning worked, that the weeding made space, that the soil is now ready. This is the proof. You have peace in your separation. Even when you miss them, even when the memories hit hard, even when you wish things had turned out differently, there's a quiet knowing in your spirit that says, this is right. This is necessary. This is God. Because the old rooms can't contain the new you. The old words can't describe the new mantle. The old rhythm can't hold the new fire. So, you walk forward, with open hands, with soft eyes, with steel in your spine and oil on your feet. You don't carry bitterness. You carry blueprints. You carry strategy. You carry the sound of separation, and separation is the sound of sacrifice. Not everyone will understand. Not everyone is supposed to. But you will know, deep in your marrow, that the distance was divine, that the silence birthed strength, that the goodbye made room for the glory. Chosen one. Never again mourn what God delivered you from. You are not empty. You are entrusted. You are not alone. You are assigned. You are not forgotten. You are set apart. And the very fact that you feel this deeply is proof that you are still tender, still teachable, still responsive to the Spirit. That is not weakness, it's warrior posture. You didn't walk away, you were called out. You didn't lose people, you gained clarity. You didn't shrink, you were refined. And now, it's time to walk in the fullness of who you've become, to carry the mantle with authority, to speak with unfiltered conviction, to serve without needing applause, to go where the crowd refuses, to love fiercely, to burn brightly, to live separated, not in sorrow, but in power, because the separation was the proof. Chosen one. You've made it. You didn't just hear the call, you endured it. You didn't just carry the weight, you walked it out. Through every section, every line, every prophetic moment you've been rising, not to impress, but to illuminate. Because what you carry is no longer hidden. It's no longer potential. It's power. Your life is not a coincidence. It is a sign, a divine marker in time that says, God still marks his people. God still appoints the set apart. You are proof that grace still chooses, that fire still falls, that obedience still breaks chains. And now, you walk out of this word changed, bolder, clearer, anointed. You are not behind. You are not too late. You have not missed it. The shaking wasn't to scatter you, it was to settle you into divine position. You were never meant to blend in. You were born to lead, to intercede, to unite. And now, the world will see what heaven has long known. You are God's chosen one. So if this message breathed life into your spirit, hit that like button, not just for the algorithm, but as a prophetic agreement with what was just spoken over your life. Share this with someone you know is set apart, someone wrestling silently with the weight of being chosen. Let them know they are not crazy, they are called. Subscribe to stay connected to this stream of prophetic fire. Because this isn't just content, it's confirmation. And if the Spirit prompts you to sow, do so with joy. Not out of pressure, but out of alignment. Your giving fuels this mission. It sends this message into dark places. It multiplies freedom. Every seed becomes a sound in someone else's breakthrough. This is your moment. This is your crown. This is your commission. Go forth unshakable, unstoppable, undeniably His.